So this video is just to help you out with the ethical and legal issues. I know a few of you are struggling after the lecture. So first of all, you need to know what BASIS is. It stands for the British Association of Sport and Exercise Scientists. Basically what they do, they regulate sport and exercise science research throughout the UK, making sure it's ethical, excuse me, making sure it's valid and fair. So basically not wasting time by doing research which isn't necessary. And it also protects participants, ensuring that they're safe. They're not doing anything they don't know about or putting them in a dangerous situation as such. One of the ways you can ensure that you work both legally and ethically is by gaining informed consent from the participant. So we've already talked about informed consent and how you've given informed consent in the past. So for example, when you went to CDHAM, you had to give informed consent. And you need it because it protects both the researcher, but it also protects the participant as well. It protects the researcher because the participant is actually giving their consent. They're saying, I want to take part in this research, I understand it. So for example, if there was any risks involved, so say you were doing a fitness test, you know there's a chance you might vomit following it. The participant signs to say they completely understand this, and by the participant signing and dating, it protects the researcher because the researcher can then say, no, they all knew about this. Therefore, no legal action can be taken against the researcher. So like I said, it's signed by the participants and it states that they're happy to take part in whatever the topic may be. Full bullet points of what it should include. So you should always include description of the investigation, so what it entails, what's expected of the participant, the exact procedure, so things about the warm-up, what's actually happening, the cool-down. Are there any risks involved, so could they get injured or anything like that? What are you going to do with the research? So are you putting it into a journal article or anything like that? Just basically anything that the participant may want to know needs to be included in there. And anything that the researcher feels the participant may need to know also needs to go in there. What's really, really important though, like I said, is that it gets signed and dated by the participant. So for example, if you were doing research on the aerobic capacity of college students, and we were looking at the multi-stage fitness test, I would need to get you all, if I was the researcher, to complete informed consent. By completing informed consent, I'm informing you of what the research is, what it's going to entail, any risks involved. I'm going to tell you what the multi-stage fitness test is. It'll include things like what equipment you should bring, time of day, how you should prepare in terms of diet, fluid, etc., etc. And you would just sign that to say that you're happy with that. This is an example of what an informed consent can look like. So this is in your BTEC chapter, which is on Blackboard already. So have a little look in that chapter as well, give you a few more ideas of what it could include. Oh, really key point as well. If you are under 18, a parent or guardian has to countersign. Right, confidentiality. So when a researcher does research, they need to gather data. They need to get data from different individuals, and they need to make sure they keep that data safe. They need to make sure they're not sharing that data with anyone that shouldn't have the data. For example, if you were to give someone your address, your phone number, and they didn't look after that data properly, it could get into the hands of like market. So you could get prank phone calls, someone can nick your identity and stuff like that, etc., etc. So confidentiality is really, really key. So we use the example in class that we were going to look at body fat percentage between 1A and 1Bs. And the idea behind that was that some people weren't happy that their body fat percentage would get shared between the tutor groups. Searching for body fat percentage could be an experiment. Body fat percentage is something people can get a little bit embarrassed about. Therefore, people don't want their names attached to it. But you could have codes. So you could have participant 1, 2, 3. You could just do it by grouping people in terms of ages, and that just protects confidentiality. So only information that is important to the experiment may be disclosed. So things like the results. That's all. You don't need to know people's names. You don't need to know where they're from or anything. They just need to know the actual results. Usually their gender and also maybe their age group, but that's it. Now, the Data Protection Act came in 1998. Now, this states that all data must be securely held, and it must be protected properly. This is really, really important. So to ensure that this happens, you could do something like keep all forms kept in a locked filing cabinet, or maybe if it's an electronic form, you have it password protected so people can't just access it out of nowhere. How can a researcher ensure informed consent? That's by getting the protocol for the fitness test. That's by getting an informed consent form, sitting down with the participants and explaining everything, having a Q&A session, getting the participants to sign that form. So an example of where you would need to apply confidentiality and data protection could be for a range of experiments. So like I said earlier, the body fat percentage could be one where you need to include data protection. Not only because people get embarrassed, but again, people do not want to share. People don't want to share their data with other people. They don't want to share personal details like address, date of birth, etc., etc. Right, there's implications not working both legally and ethically. There's three main steps to this. So first of all, you've got a tribunal. So a tribunal is kind of like a court of justice. Now, what this will do, if you've been accused of working illegally or unethically, it can go to a tribunal, which is, like I said, a court of justice. This will be headed up by BASES, because we're in Britain. Now, it'll be like a trial. So you will try and defend yourself as the researcher, and they'll try to find out if you were legal or ethical. Now, if you are found guilty, it can lead to a fine, a written warning, or you may not research again. There's some good and positive things about this. Obviously, it's excellent that they're policing research, making sure it's ethical and stuff. And what that does, that makes sure all research that is done can be trustworthy. Now, if you can trust research as being done, you can utilize that in future research as well and build up on research that's been done. Also, it helps sport and exercise science within the country, so British athletes can benefit from effective research being done. It can improve performances and make Britain a better sporting nation. Also improves the quality of universities around Britain, so makes them more world renowned. By having better quality universities, greater opportunity of jobs for people who go to British universities. There's a few bad things about this as well. So for example, tribunal could take a while to undertake. So what if it takes 3 months to even get to the tribunal? That researcher that was potentially working unethically could continue working and producing research in those 3 months, which is just a complete waste of time. Tribunals actually cost money. So let's just say someone was falsely accused. You go through the whole tribunal and waste all that money, and it's just money that BASES can't afford to waste. It's money that could have gone on research. Like any court of law, if someone has a good defence, they may get away with some. So rather than get a fine or not being allowed to research again, they may just get a written warning. They may work unethically in the future. Another bad thing about a tribunal as well is what if someone's actually found guilty and they were not guilty? So that's potential as well. They're not necessarily 100% perfect either. There's also another negative that you can base your own research on future research. So you may like a theory that someone came up with and developed, and you might want to research that further. You could spend, say, 10 years researching that theory, doing lots of experiments and stuff. Then that original theory may have been found to be unethical, and that research may get banned. Not only does that affect their research, affects your research, brings into question the quality of your research, your reputation, and things like that. And it just can almost destroy a career that way. Then we can have legal or civil action. So basically, if you don't work legally or ethically, you open yourself up to this. So say you were part of an experiment as a participant and you were unethically treated, you could take legal or civil action. So basically what this means is you could get sued as a researcher by someone, or they could try and take you to a tribunal. Now, as long as you follow the code of conduct and you do everything properly, you can never be subjected to legal or civil action. Now, the bad thing about this is you could work completely legally and completely ethically, and everything could be okay. But let's just say you forgot to sign a certain form, or you haven't quite designed your form properly. You could have someone who's just after a bit of quick money and a bit of compensation take legal or civil action against you, and they may just try and sue you just because you might not have done anything wrong, but because you haven't designed your phone properly to protect yourself, they could actually take legal or civil action against you. And then there's different measures that can be used to stop future research. We've already talked about some of it. So basically, like I said, you could go to a tribunal. Already talked about positives and negatives of that. So they cost a lot of money, which is a negative, can take a lot of time, may not get the right result. Positives are, though, overall it improves the standard of research within Britain, better job prospects because of that, better standard of research, world renowned, etc., etc. Excuse me. Well, for what you can do is get you can either get temporarily or permanently banned from bases and from research altogether. So I guess almost like a prison sentence. So if it's just for say 2 years, that's good because you're stopping that person from not working legally and unethically. However, what if they come back after the 2 years and they start doing the exact same thing again? So it doesn't actually work properly that way necessarily. Maybe on times a more permanent ban may be more applicable. However, a more permanent ban may be over the top, because what if someone hadn't done something that bad? Maybe they just had a slight oversight on the paperwork and they get permanently banned, so it would be unfair. So you have to make sure with the measures to stop future research that the punishment does actually fit the crime.